and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good. Welcome, everybody. If it's Tuesday, it must be a ICSD Board of Education meeting, and next Tuesday there's a vote, Dr. Brown, and I think there's a vote for our 16-17 budget, correct? Yeah. And that is next Tuesday, the 17th, from noon till 9 o'clock at a voting location near you.
And there are three propositions. While you're mentioning it, you might as well mention
No, go ahead.
everything that's on it. Proposition 1 is the budget. Proposition 2 is to expend money from the reserves to purchase buses and to do 3 maintenance projects over the summer. And proposition number 3 is to lease 4 acres at the Enfield Elementary site to the Enfield Community Center.
Thanks, Brad. And that is the first and most important item of business, and we're going to move on. And I believe we do have modifications to the agenda, correct?
We have personnel, supplemental personnel, and it is dated today, I believe. Yep, dated today, to add, if we could add that to the consent.
Okay, well, probably a good idea to speak to that as we...
I understand the superintendent's going to speak to one of them.
We'll give you that opportunity when we get there. So without objection, we'll do that. And so we'll move right on to public comment period. And I do believe we're going to talk about Legos.
Mr. Peter McCracken.
Come forward if I may.
Yeah.
We love Legos, so you're good.
My name is Peter McCracken. I'm the father of a 6th grader at LACS and also the volunteer coordinator for the Lego TCPL build, which I'd like to tell you a little bit about. We're asking the board...
That's the Tompkins County Public Library for people who don't speak abbreviations.
I'd like to ask the board, those present and those listening or watching from elsewhere, to participate in and support this project. As a celebration of the successful conclusion of our capital campaign for the public library, we're doing one final fundraiser, one that is thoroughly unique. We're building a minifigure-sized version of the library made completely from Lego bricks, and we're inviting the entire community to participate in this build. For every $50 that a person or a group or an organization donates to the Tompkins County Public Library Foundation, that person or group will receive a set of bricks and instructions to build part of this new library, of our 21st century public library. They'll bring those completed modules to the library on a Saturday in May or June and install it on the 7.5-foot by 7.5-foot model that we're building. It's currently in the North Reading Room and visible from Green Street. We had our first build this past Saturday, and it was a great success. We'll continue building the model on Saturdays through June 18th, when we'll have a public celebration of the completion of both the capital campaign and the Lego build. I'd like to invite members of the board, the school district, and the public to participate in this build by coming to see the model under construction, by reserving a set to build and install, by participating in the regular Saturday Lego at the Library event, or through several other paths we've developed in building our Lego library. We already have families, school groups, church groups, businesses, Girl Scout troops, kids of all ages, and more participating in the build, and we hope that the entire community will help us build the county library, our county library. As an example of the project, I brought 2 small parts of the build with me. The modules that people are building generally consist of walls and structural components and use a lot more bricks than I brought with me. But I thought they would be useful to see some of the accessories. This is a bookshelf. We've got a lot of these to build, which my son's best friend, a 5th grader at Fall Creek, built this afternoon. And here's a chalkboard, which my son built. I think that since it's a library and not the school system, it's not a smart board. But still, there's still a place for chalkboards, I think. So, anyway, this will be in the teen center in the completed structure. So, I hope this gives you a taste of the project, and I hope you'll encourage school groups, including school teachers and staff, to participate in and support this bill. Thanks very much.
Great. Excellent. Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak now? probably not looking at the group unless Bob wants to say, you're good, Bob, right, okay, well, we'll keep moving. So, well, students.
Over spring,
No, go right ahead. I'm looking at Ithaca High. I always like to look at Ithaca High, so go right ahead.
Jumped in.
over spring break, Code Red traveled to St. Louis to participate in the first robotics championships, and they advanced to the semifinals before losing partially due to a battery failure. The Ithaca High School Casino Night will be on May 20th, which is a chance for seniors to gamble using fake money and then enter to win prizes in a raffle. And on April 27th, the Ithaca tennis team beat the rivals Horsehead 6-1.
So students are still participating in AP exams, either in the morning or the afternoon. We still wish them luck, especially those who have many they must attend, especially one of our reps who was busy studying, so good luck to him. And we all look forward to receiving our scores in July, which is a very far away, but we feel confident in our studying ability. And then after AP week, different classes will be having their field trips, such as the physics classes will go to Darien Lake May 23rd for their physics trip, where they get to use special tools to and use the knowledge they've learned in class to understand the physics behind stuff like roller coasters and those tilt whirls, and it'll be lots of fun for them. The chemistry and bio classes in June will be teaching elementary schoolers about some of the units they've studied in the year prior. And the government classes will be going to City Hall, courthouses, and many other different government buildings to really see our local government in action. Yesterday, kind of on the topic of government, we had our annual spring election meeting. So students received their petitions of candidacy and got briefed on how to campaign. Last year, candidates filmed their campaign statements in the TV studio for the viewing pleasure of the fellow voting students. But this new year, we're having a Meet the Candidate event, which will take place after school May 24th, the day before the election, where voting students will be able to meet with the candidates and understand their policies and where they stand on different topics. And voting will take place on May 25th, and we all look forward to see who will win.
Next Friday, a few small ensemble groups from our high school band are going over to Fall Creek Elementary School to participate in their Friday morning program, and they're going to be performing a couple short pieces, and we think that this is going to be a great opportunity for the older students and younger students to kind of meet, because that doesn't happen very often, and inspire the younger students to continue their passive music. And next Saturday at the Johnson Art Museum at Cornell, junior prom will take place from 7 to 10 p.m. And prom committee has been working hard, holding meetings to figure out the specifics of the event, including refreshments, decorations, and music. And with all this careful planning, it is no doubt that junior prom will be highly successful this year. In the upcoming weeks, juniors will start buying tickets, filling out their dance contracts, and so forth. That's all I have for you tonight.
Great, thanks. Elise, yes?
Well, some of our students, led by 2 seniors, are working on plans to create a food pantry at LACS. It's been going pretty well so far as I've heard, and yeah. It hasn't been very
So it's been
eventful.
pretty quiet at
It's
least.
been pretty quiet.
It's,
Wait until next time.
No,
There'll
it's
be
good.
more.
We've all been studying.
I have no,
Pretty much.
I have no expectations. It's okay to just like go to school and study. You don't have to save the world all in 1 week, so that's a good thing. And board responses? Brad, go ahead.
Thank you to Peter for coming tonight about the library, and for my board members and administration friends. Since we're going to be watching election results next Tuesday night, we'll have 2 modules here for us to do. Remember, we could be competitive about it if you wanted, to see if the board could get it done before the administration or something like that, however you want to do it. But we'll have 2 modules here for us to work on next Tuesday while we wait for the election results.
I like Lincoln.
Yeah.
Is that Sean? Go ahead.
Number 1, I only play on winning teams. Number 2, thank you, Pierre. We happened to have a great experience last night at the facilities committee talking to the 2 LACS seniors who've been working on, we're not sure what the word is yet, the language, right? But sort of a food pickup location
Yes.
at LACS. And we were really impressed by the work that folks are doing to try to turn and use the school as a way to become part of the community. And so we're looking forward to continuing that work. So thanks for bringing up that project. It was good. We had a good meeting. We had a long meeting, but it was a good meeting.
It was a long meeting.
Nice to be out at Enfield to have
It
that.
was great. It was good.
And certainly for the facilities committee, they have been meeting at schools all around the district, which gives everyone an opportunity to look around. And Enfield's a long way from downtown. So to reiterate how far that is, and Caroline and the other schools. So Mario, did you? Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say that if anybody has never been to Casino Night at Ithaca High School, it's worth dropping by. So what was the date of that again?
May 20th.
And are there other Senior Week events happening, Ma'am?
The Blacklight dance has already happened, and I think there's also a senior night, which is coming up.
And the prom?
That's
Very
it.
important.
When's the prom?
It's
That's
going to be in June.
June 12th, I think.
All right.
It's all coming up. Anything else? Pat, go ahead.
I want to say, first of all, that I'm an old Lego builder from way back. Way back. Parenthood dating 32 years. I'm older than Legos. So I didn't get Legos because my parents thought that our plastic bricks were good enough and our Lincoln logs and all those things that are now in toy museums. And then I just wanted to underscore PJ's kudos to Code Red Robotics team. Not only did they go to the semifinals this year, but they had their best performance ever in the history of the team. Because, they placed number 6 in their division, that was Curie Division, and it was they've gone to finals a couple times before, but this was the first time that they were placed so high that they were the captain of their coalition, and they got to choose the other 2 teams. I watched the quarterfinals, semifinals. It was incredibly exciting, and it was a little heartbreaking to see that there was some mechanical failure at the end because they had just an outstanding robot this year, as did many others.
Pat, just think how far they could have gone if they were powered by natural gas instead of battery. Fossil fuels, Dr. Brown.
Geothermal.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, anyone else?
I have a question for the young man from LICS. What are the thoughts about who the pantry will serve? Is it for student families? Is it for the community? Is it for both?
I'm happy to answer. I've read the proposal. The 2 students are doing this part of their senior project. They put out surveys throughout a number of the apartment complexes, including the neighborhood, and they've been doing, this is part of an ongoing conversation that folks are having. As I understand it, at LACS, they've been doing sort of parent evenings, they've been having potluck dinners, and so this is a combination of folks. So the idea would be, it may be ICSD students and families, but more to serve as a hub for the neighborhood and the community. So it would be open to anyone who qualifies for the food pantry.
And certainly, hopefully, serving that community on West Hill.
Absolutely.
That is, it's harder for folks to get down to the other spots downtown.
And the research, that's what they found as well, that most of the food pantries and food pickup spots are downtown and only open during the day. And so the idea would have this to be open between 4:30 and 6:30, so people can come after work and not have to lug the groceries from, say, the Commons or the Salvation Army, which is by short stop, or some of the other, or Southside, right, or some of the locations, or Loaves and Fish of St. Paul's, or wherever else they're at.
It would be 1 day a week.
1 day a week.
1 day.
Right.
But an outstanding effort by students to get this going. I know it's been a long process, but many things are long processes, Dr. Brown, that are useful. Anyone else right now? David?
If I may, I just
You're not a board
wanted to
member, David.
thank,
But, okay.
I'm sorry.
It's all right.
I want to thank Boynton Music Department for hosting over 2,000 students last Friday and Saturday, students from North Syracuse all the way down to Binghamton, and it's a huge undertaking, and it really is, makes it much more convenient for our own students. So it was a pretty incredible NISMA festival last weekend.
Boynton was packed Friday and Saturday driving by. It was
Great.
cars everywhere, up and down the Keegan Street, et cetera. Great. Yeah, it's and parents do volunteer and help out as well. So thanks to certainly the parents of students at Boynton and DeWitt that also helped out as well. Anyone else? Anything else? We'll go on to the consent.
I'll move the consent as presented.
Second.
If I could speak to one item.
Go ahead, Brett.
I asked my colleagues' indulgence. I allowed the 6A, the resolution to revise the Joe Moresco Fund to go on without coming to the committee. It didn't seem like anything that we would want to alter in any way. It's a request from the family to make a change in the scholarship, so I allowed that to go on the agenda without it going to committee. So just wanted to speak to that, but I didn't think there was anything. We're not going to contest what the family wants to do, so it seemed fine.
Right, and Tim Moresco did call me, and over the last few years called me and called me again, and really this was their request to just to change it up, and the details are there, but they just wanted to make impactful gifts while for the funds that are left in the Joe Moresco Scholarship Fund, rather than just a little bit over a long period of time, and then people will wonder who is Joe Moresco again. Some of the scholarships certainly are very long lives, so it's certainly a good thing to do. Jennifer, also on the list are a variety of folks for the polling stations. You have everybody you need now? I mean, that's...
I have 48.
You
Again.
have 48? Yay. I know
Back and forth.
I know that's been... Jennifer's been doing yeoman's work, getting ready for the election, and one of the items is making sure that we have enough poll watchers, and we need a certain amount in order to have obviously a viable polling station. There's a lot of details, a lot of work, effort, and long, stressful days for Jennifer, but we're getting close. So anything else on the consent? We're good? Moved, seconded, correct? Yep. All in favor? That's everyone, and everyone is all 8 of us. And if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Brown is Superintendent's report. Dr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Henry, for the opportunity. 2 items tonight. First, I wish to thank the board for approving the most recent administrative recommendation. We're happy to welcome Mr. David Hanna as our new Athletics and Wellness Director. Typically, when I'm talking about administrative appointments, we go through the resumes, and I never do folks justice when I'm trying to read. David's resume is very impressive, and I know over the years people will come to understand that he's done a lot. He was most recently on Coach Archer's staff at Cornell as a special teams coach, I believe. Correct? Yes, sir. But if I could, I just want to talk. I've been calling for administrative references for over 20 years now, and I got to say, when talking to folks about David, and yeah, we talk to folks who are listed on your applications. We do that because we must, but we also call a lot of other folks that you don't know we're calling to. That's just how we do it here. I've never had people talk as powerfully and as positively about an individual as I've heard them talk about David. Some of the things we heard were he is an amazing person. He's done things to help everyone. He's the most impressive individual I've met in 35 years. He's the best person we've had in our athletic department at Cornell University in my tenure. You don't hear that kind of stuff from folks, and we heard that from person after person after person after person. Our young people already know him. They've seen him. I went in the gym the other day. I looked around, and he was there, getting to know people. So what people are saying about you, we are already experiencing, and we are excited about having you on staff now to help us grow and mature on already a very good program. We all know our Fine and Performing Arts program and athletic program is something that we're very proud of here, and we've seen significant expansions and achievements over the last couple of years. And what I know tonight, and thank you for your approval, is that we have the person at the helm now who will help us go to even greater heights. So welcome, David, and we're looking forward to working with you.
And Coach, this is an opportunity to say a few words if you wish, or you can remain silent as well. So.
Thank you. The introduction probably should say something. Just thank you for welcoming me. It's been a phenomenal process getting to know those in the district leadership and being able to come to some games the last couple months, just doing my due diligence and then seeking out the opportunity. So I'm really appreciative. I feel like I'm jumping off what I call the hamster wheel of college coaching, and I'm doing it intentionally because I love children love working with young people, and this is the opportunity from my perspective to coach the coaches and to help fulfill the vision that academics and athletics can go hand in hand. And for many kids, athletics is the hook, that can keep them in school, keep them doing well in school, and help them to excel once they get it and actually are mature. So thank you for having me. I'm excited to work with everyone.
Thanks, Coach.
Nice tie, by the way, too. Tie is important, right? Secondly, and quickly, we talked about the budget vote. I just want to say that last Tuesday night we had our third tele-town hall conversation, and we dialed over 5,600 phone numbers in our school district. 3,000 of them were answered. No, I'm sorry. We got 3,000 answering machines. Jennifer was about to punch me. So we got 3,000 answering machines, but 603 of those calls were accepted. And that is an all-time high for us. We had about 200 folks on the line for a significant portion of the call, and a lot of folks stayed on the phone call as the board engaged in two-way dialogue with our community about the budget and some other items too. We gave folks an opportunity to ask any questions of us, and they did. So again, quite a few phone calls made last week, and we did engage quite a few folks around the process. Thank you. That's all.
Very good. Thanks, Dr. Brown. And I guess we have to continue with the meeting, even though we have very successfully adopted and accepted a new athletic director. So I suppose there's other things we have to do.
A few.
Don't we?
Yeah. Including welcoming Lydia, as this sound is going on in my back. In the world.
And Liddy, you're going to talk to us, give us an update regarding professional development. There you go. Good. That important stuff.
Exciting stuff. Professional.
So I'm just going to give you an update on professional development work that we are developing for this summer and next year. I gave a preview of this at the curriculum subcommittee. We've actually worked more on it since then, and I want to actually thank the curriculum committee for their enthusiastic support of the work that we're doing. It was really great. The whole team is happy. I'm going to say the word "we" an awful lot because I don't work by myself, so they just couldn't be here tonight. So this is the work of not just myself, but Lynn Vanderwert, Caitlin Brom, Lee Ginenthal, and Jen Wilkie, and Matt. So and also everyone that we always talk about. So I cannot stop saying "we." So it's the invisible "we." So this is our mission vision. This is the vision for all learners in the district. I made those inclusive words in red there. And inclusion is at the heart of this. What we want to do is show you how our professional development program is tied directly to realizing this vision. This graphic really shows that this engaged, empowered education for everyone is only happens when curriculum, instruction, and community and culture come together and intersect and create the conditions that are needed for all students to excel. So we need all of those to happen. We'll go back, sorry. I nod too much. So working on any one of these can move a district forward, but it really can't move us towards that vision of the engaged, empowered education. We need to work intentionally in all of these areas and make the connections between them so that these areas, are explicit in the work that we're doing with teachers so that students understand why they're learning something and why community is important and why what we choose to teach in the curriculum is an important piece of that as well. So how do we plan to do this? Well, we have 4 major strands that we're focusing on. And I'll talk more about all of them, but in general, the cultural responsiveness and the power practices that I'm going to talk a little bit more about are going to be infused in everything, but also they're going to be explicit workshops and explicit staff meetings and handouts. So we're going to be both implicit, including it, and explicit, and really describing and detailing what we mean by those areas, both this summer and for years to come. We really feel like these are anchors for the work that we're doing. The curriculum development obviously works on science and social studies and ELA and math, so we'll also have specific workshops on all those areas, including also digital literacy, so that encompasses many pieces. Social emotional development is included in many of these. In the co-teaching, we're going to be having specific workshops on supporting students in the classroom. All second-year teachers are going to be part of the responsive classroom series that we've done in the past. We're also having other de-escalation techniques for all staff, so that we're working to have all staff understand and support all students so they can feel included. So really this inclusion piece is grounded by, and at the heart of it is the cultural responsiveness. We're working this summer to finalize a multi-year initiative with all Ithaca School District staff, and every staff member, to go through a required series with choices, so that everyone's going to have to be involved at some level. We're going to ask them to self-select areas that they feel they'd like to work on. We're going to use the scientifically based best practices of working with adults. We're going to give people choice. We're going to give them experiences so that they can apply it to whatever they're working in the district. So we're working with BOCES, we're working with community members, we're working with EILC to develop this year-long series. And we're very excited about this series. And also, returning to what I said before, cultural responsiveness is also going to be embedded in all the other workshops that we are presenting, explicitly saying, here's a connection to where you may have been talking about cultural responsiveness in this area, and when we're talking about the NGSS standards, the new science standards, here's how you can be culturally responsive when you're working on that. So we're really working to be explicit in all areas. So this cultural responsiveness work is going to be going on for a couple of years, and I'll be coming back to you defining what that series is going to look like. It's going to kick off this fall. We're going to go on to the power practices. The power practices are from the Danielson rubric, and the Danielson rubric is what we use to evaluate all our teachers. And many times you talk to teachers and there's a little bit of a, you're being evaluated. It's sort of hard. It's a large document. What we're trying to do is re-image it, for lack of a better word, use it as an anchor text. It's an important document. It's also very long and very dense. So we've looked at multiple sources of data. We've looked at the thousands of evaluations that we do every year, and we've looked at where we consistently might need to support teachers to grow, to support administrators to support teachers to grow. We've also do frequent surveys of teachers of where do they see they need support, where their building needs support. We looked at scientifically researched best practices of working with teachers. So we took all of those areas of data, we looked at the somewhat long Danielson rubric, and we focused in on what we're calling 8 power practices. I don't know if Charlotte Danielson would like us to call it the 8 power practices, but she does speak specifically about that the full value of this rubric that she wrote is really realized when it is not just used for evaluation, when it is used as a cornerstone for professional development. I've actually read interviews with her where she's a little bit horrified that districts are just using it as an evaluative tool. She did not write it just as an evaluative tool. So I feel like we are bringing it more into its own. So I'm just going to hand out the people that were at the curriculum subcommittee saw a version of this. We have been making this a more complete document. So at the top of the document are, you can go to the next one, the 8, maybe you didn't click on it, right? Thank you. Yeah. So there are the 8 practices that we chose from the many, many practices that are in there. We chose them because of that data, and also they show different areas that we want teachers to be focusing on. You'll see in there that on this document, the descriptors that are the first bullet under each of the practices have the student at the center of them. So they're the descriptor of highly effective teachers in each of these areas, so that, even the maintaining accurate records, which seems somewhat separate from working with students, but if you look at that one, which is the second to the last one, it's on the back page. The teacher has students contribute information and participate in maintaining the records. So we are working with teachers on student goal setting, student reflection, and student maintaining their own records, creating portfolios, having student-led conferences. So while that one seems that it's removed from instruction, it really is tied to students taking control of their own learning. So it's really exciting that we are able to focus on these areas. We're just rolling this out with the rest of the district, and we're going to be helping them understand why we've come to these 8, and also how they can use these in everything that they're doing. Yeah.
This looks quite a bit more advanced than the last time we spoke about some areas to hang our hat on in at the Human Resources Committee. We were talking about what to ask teachers during the interview, and that was classroom management, cultural competency, love for children, technological. We had some basic functional things, and again, I don't even see where those things fit in this, because this looks far more involved.
Oh, I actually do. So classroom management is engaging students in learning. So do we want to know if they can keep kids quiet, or do we want to know if they can engage students and have them fully engaged in the day and be asking meaningful questions? And the way you get to that is, using questioning and discussion techniques. So I can see a question in an interview where you're saying, so how do you handle a class that seems disengaged? That then their answer speaks to, do they manage, do they discipline, or do they engage and question and ask students to be a part of their learning? So we would want teachers to be saying, well, the first day I'm asking kids to reflect on what they learned the year before and set goals for this year. That really helps on the Friday afternoon when the kids aren't interested in reviewing for the test next week. They've made a goal, they need to work for it.
Let me just throw out one more random one.
Yeah.
Subject matter expertise. What umbrella would that fit under?
I think it would fit under almost all of them, because if you're engaging students in learning, you best know your topic. You need to know your curriculum very strongly. If you're using your assessment and instruction, you can't create a good assessment if you don't know what it is the students need to learn. If you are establishing a culture for learning, you have to be the expert in the room. Even if you're really facilitating, you're not necessarily lecturing, but it's actually easier to lecture than to guide students toward an answer. You have to give a lot of resources, you have to give a lot of choices. So a lecture, you're telling one way. But if you are letting students make choices of how they learn, you have to have a deep, deep knowledge, not just of how students learn, but what it is they need to learn.
I'm asking for a reason. I'm leading you to this. This is fantastic. But again, we're clearly ahead of what young teachers are learning in their educational programs. So when they come to us, are we going to try and make a subtle shift and these things become the questions during the interview?
I think we need to ask these in a very, I don't know what the word is, a beginner's way. So if they have an idea that they can't just try to control kids, they have to create relationships with students. I would hope a first-year teacher understands that. We want first-year teachers to understand that. I can help new teachers learn, how to create an engaging curriculum. But if they don't understand that they need to interact and establish a culture for learning and establish relationships with kids, we're not going to get very far with them.
I understand the question that Eldred asking. It would be interesting. I just gave a guest lecture to our student teachers at college for the day, and they're doing this kind of work and more. And their question to me as a board member was, how can I stay radical as I become a new teacher, right? So it's interesting. I'm sure Pat's husband probably experienced the same thing with his students, right? They're trying to find ways which the structure may feel like not allow them to do some of these things because they're so test-driven or content-driven or what the case may be. So I understand the question, but it's interesting that some of our younger teachers are actually being pushed, I would say, in quite this way.
Yeah.
Is that, I don't know if that's been your experience or...
Yeah, I mean, the people that we're excited to hire are radical and want students to make choices and to be flexible in their teaching. You know, we just did a gallery walk for our second interview, so we don't have teachers come in and give a fake lesson. We actually did a gallery walk of the teachers.
What was that exactly?
Well, so the teachers were in different areas in the room, and the principals went around and had, I'm not sure exactly how many minutes, 3 to 5 minutes with each teacher, and the teacher got 2 minutes to talk about something, you know, and we said, we don't want you to just like bring a lesson plan, we want you to talk about something, and then the principals were able to then engage them in just a conversation. We felt like that really got to, you know, the essence of this, you know, like what do you believe about what kids should be doing in the classroom?
Speed dating in an interview process.
That word was used. We didn't,
That's what it looked like.
we had a bell.
But we call it gallery walk.
Gallery walk, yeah. Speed dating might.
Not that I have any experience.
There might be people that
in
not
speed dating.
show up for that. So we're excited to use this as a basis for just, you know, we talked about the hiring process, you know, not just evaluations, professional development, conversations. We think that this is also a way for the public to engage, right? So as we work with the community to understand what we're focusing on, when they come in to speak with teachers, they can say, you know, well, I'm wondering how you're using your assessments in instruction. I never thought to ask that when I was a parent. Still have 2 weeks.
Still have a chance, let it,
I have a chance.
But typically the parent, you know, when my wife used to make me go to these things, it was, you know, it's always, well, how's my kid doing? How's my child doing?
Yeah.
So, I mean, so you can ask that in probably a little, well, the parent can ask that in a more informed way by using some of these. It's really the same thing.
It is the same thing, but it's speaking the language of the teachers, and it's speaking to, I want my student to be engaged. You know, it's one thing to get an A. It's another thing is my child thinking? I mean, if, you know, that's what we're getting to, 6,000.
Are they engaged in their day? I mean, do they have friends? Are they social? You know, are they behaving? Or, you know, those, you know, that's what parents want
Are they
to know.
asking questions in class? Yeah. So another area that we're working on, that again, the cultural responsiveness, the inclusion, and the 8 power practice will be a part of, is our curriculum work. The secondary teachers this summer are, we're inviting teachers to teach teachers. We're saying, if you're doing anything that approximates 1 or 2 of these 6 power practices, we will pay you to tell other teachers about it. So just like last summer, 95% of our presenters were ICSD teachers. We're doing that again. We're really focusing on secondary teachers, sharing with other secondary teachers. Here's what we're doing. Here's how we're using these power practices to give some interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary curriculum to students and helping them to be engaged. So we're excited about that. We've put that out to the secondary teachers, and we think it's going to be another exciting summer's worth of work. That is going to lead into the fall, where we're going to have a task force of secondary folks, teachers and administrators and community members, and for lack of a better word, we're going to go on some field trips, and we're going to go look around the region at secondary schools, secondary public schools in New York that have to take the same tests as we do, that are really using the transdisciplinary approach, having social studies and English working together, having the technology folks and the social studies folks working together to do projects with students. How is that working? We are also, right within our district, going to be walking over to LACS because that is happening right in our district. So we know we don't have to go far, right at our back door, at our side door, on our hill. So we're going to really focus on that. There's a lot of excitement at the secondary level, and so we can move forward with that after a summer of teachers sharing with one another. Excuse me. For elementary work, I do want to share a page that is out of this. Can you get to that? No, there was another site. That's okay, I don't think so. It was another site that I sent you. It's all right. Don't worry about it. At the elementary level, we have been working. We're on our 5th year of the interdisciplinary work, and I will share with you a page where on December 15th of this year, so it was right before break, we had 60 or 70 elementary teachers coming together to continue their work on their interdisciplinary case studies, and we asked them to just post how it's going. And the quotes were things like, the kids, after an hour and a half of working on building their electrical engineering project, said, do we have to go to lunch? Parents are reporting that they're finally hearing about an entire day of school. So we're getting a lot of feedback from teachers and parents that students are highly engaged. They're just feeling the connections. They're coming into school the next day saying, I saw this at home, and this made me think of something we did in school. The connections to the real world are just really exciting to see.
So here's something that I don't know, and I've done some of this. If you could explain it to us, it might be helpful. So this is a significant shift. It doesn't seem like there's major pushback, right? We're now explaining that not only are people not pushing back, they really get it. But I don't think we have a collective idea of how this translates from your vision and how it gets pushed down into the teacher's ranks. Like, what are the touchstones? Who drives it? What are the milestones? How does it come to be? How do we go from that slide to next September, the teachers all being somewhat confident that they can now begin to try this out in the classroom?
Well, teachers are trying it out in the classroom. So we have about 80 to 90% of elementary teachers implementing. So last year I would have told you that 80 to 90% were planning. This year 80 to 90% of teachers have done or are in the midst of doing a case study. And so that is as a result of 4 years of work. We've built from looking at the standards. How do the standards look across the year? And then what part of that year can we put together for all the different areas, for math, science, social studies, ELA. And then we have a case study template, which I can share with you. Right now, Jen Wilkie, Lynn Vanderwert, and Caitlin Brom are leading this work. It used to be Lily and I, but we have pulled back and we're doing this work now. Actually, Jen Wilkie is working with Latonia on creating a page that has just artifacts of the work, videos of students in the work, videos of students talking about the work, artifacts of their written work as a result of it. So we have a lot of evidence of the work that's been going on.
This process is not only a case study, but it's the vision and mission coming alive. We talk about empowering, and that's not just for young people, but for adults also. We were purposeful, and we did not say to folks to do this. We didn't require anyone to do the PD. We didn't require anyone to teach in this way. We actually only offered opportunities, and we showed them what it could look like. And this buy-in and more implementation that's now kids and families are begging for it at PTA council meetings, et cetera, has come because folks have been empowered to do this. And people struggled. I was in that first meeting where people were ready to throw stones at you when you said, no, you're going to build it, and I'm not telling you what it's going to look like. And we struggled with that for about a year and a half now. But now people have built in. We're pushing now. What she's described for the last 15 minutes is it coming alive. We know now we need to show it to people. So So we're now working on a web instance that's going to be interactive, where one can go to our website and see the vision mission come alive in this way. So you'll be able to see artifacts, examples of what this looks like in classrooms. And we hope that will then also inspire folks to do more of it as well.
So last summer, when I came to some of the summer work and saw the elementary teachers working on the next generation science standards, I was awed by it. And we've seen presentations this year that have come out of that work. So people are doing it, and the reason they're doing it is because of the way you have set it up. And I know you're not finished yet, but I have the same reaction that I had at the curriculum committee meeting, where I want to stand up and applaud. As somebody who spent 35 years as a teacher and was always very active in professional development, writing curriculum, I've developed and presented and done. Well, yeah, I mean, I did a lot of work, and this has all of the components for a outstanding development process that's going to yield results. And I've worked with the Charlotte Danielson framework in my school in Turkey, and they used it for evaluation, and I found it daunting. So when Liddy brings up Danielson at this meeting, oh God, Danielson. And then I see these power practices, and I was like, this is great. This is one of these things where I wish I were a teacher again, because this would really help me. And I'm not a teacher anymore, but I'd really love to be on the task force and participate in that.
Got my first member.
Yeah.
Brad, go ahead.
I'd be interested too, actually. Since you're kind of just talking about that, I would say just one of my first impressions listening to you present this right now is just how structured and coherent it all seems. So what I'm really liking is that you looked at what your core values were, and they're not like they're not forcing a result so much as anchoring to a concept. And I feel like it's going to give you a lot of flexibility, and it might emerge in different ways, and I find very nice to see.
Yeah, I mean, our success with the curriculum work has shown us forcing doesn't work, but showing and giving opportunities does work. I think, from that first meeting, I did get yelled at by a teacher at one of the first meetings, like, how can you not tell us what we're going to be doing? I'm like, well, we're gonna have to figure it out. And I didn't see that teacher for 2 years, and that teacher is back this year and is working on it. But that teacher needed just a little time to think about it, and saw people around them doing the work, and was able to find a way in, and it's great.
I read a Charlotte Danielson article that was published in Education Week just a couple weeks ago. You may have read the same one. It sounds like you're already out ahead of where she's publishing, or where she is, of moving away from a checklist and trying to be more nuanced in what you're doing. And that's what she was trying to say, was get away from checklists and be recognized that teaching is a nuanced profession.
Yeah. When I read that article, I wanted to write her a little note, like, I think we might need to.
I read that, and now I'm listening to you, and I think you are. I think you're already there. And I think the other thing, and Dr. Brown, don't kick me or anything, but as always, I'm wondering how far out ahead we are, and some of what you're saying to me, and what I'm hearing about the group work and across, we're getting rid of seat time. When are we finally going to decide we can move away from seat time, and and get away from that? And you're headed in that, whether you mean to be or not, you're headed in that direction. And are there other school districts in the state advocating and moving in that direction? Are we wandering the wilderness by ourselves? Where's
the culture of the school districts are keeping us in seat time requirements.
Sure.
The state is not requiring it, and we can't find things in regulation that says we must do it this way. So this is a local decision.
So we're moving away, and that's as you know, I'm ready for the day when there's the chemistry advisor in the high school, and I can stop in and see him or her at 9 o'clock or at 3 o'clock, and
One of the challenges we have
and
is
move
to
away from
navigate
seat time.
the challenges and culture of our community. And that is a conversation I'm looking forward to leading, so that we can empower our community to do this, as opposed to telling them.
I understand it's an evolution, but, you know,
Yeah, but nothing is keeping us from doing it. I have learned that from speaking with folks upstairs.
is that right? So if there's mastery of algebra on the 15th of October, I don't have to go anymore? I mean,
I hear silence. I hear silence.
Look at his face. You like that?
That is both correct and incorrect, as Doc knows. We could make that the case. We currently do not say that.
Right.
yeah, and
We currently say that you have to sit
Well,
four
right, and
quarters.
I think what you're hearing
I
is,
do, I hear you.
I'm ready.
I hear you.
I'm ready for that.
I just want to tell the students currently, that's not a possibility currently.
I understand.
I'm not quite there yet, but that's.
But I'm saying, I'm ready for that. On the
That's why I said-
assumption that they're gonna move on in other mathematics or another
I see what you're saying.
subject.
But is that,
And in some regards,
first grade?
in some regards, it's already the LACS model. Can you demonstrate proficiency in this skill set? And if you can, then let's keep it moving, right?
Right.
Like, what's under the next one? So
Right.
I think that there's a lot of educational momentum down that path.
Yeah, you have to define proficiency.
Exactly.
What does it mean for each student?
math.
And,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and how do they apply it? Why?
And it's on the agenda tonight, but it doesn't get us near our 22 Carnegie credits for each student as well. We have to have that, figure out that conversation.
There's a lot of things, and that's one of the reasons why we want to go out and talk to people that are making attempts at this. You know, it is a long process, but we need to start somewhere. And I think the power practice is, you know, getting away from a checklist and saying what is the inherent pieces that we need to be working on with students so that they're successful and it's meaningful for them.
Have you identified some schools that are doing this?
Yeah, we have a couple. One of them is in Pennsylvania, so
Okay.
it does put us out of the state, but they have state regulations too and state tests. Yeah.
Which one's that?
I think it's York School District in Pennsylvania. I could have that wrong, and I am completely blanking on the other, so I will.
They make barbells and weight stuff.
Yes, they do.
I mean,
They're strong
it goes hand in hand. But Brad has made this point before, and I've also made the point that some students, and I'm for one, that I need some structure during the day. I need
Goes both
guidance
ways.
about where I need to be and what I'm.
Goes both ways.
I'm not going to be able to create my own curriculum.
No.
So we've talked about this before. So for folks out there, we're not everyone is ready for it to be done with math on
I understand.
Well,
August
I think
15th.
we're never going to be done with direct instruction, with math, with teaching kids to read. But those things need to be in service of the social studies and science that really can connect to the world. So we're always going to teach kids how to do all those things. But, you know, like we've seen with our elementary kids, they want to learn to write a letter, you know, because there's a reason to write a letter. They want to learn the math facts so that they can go out and count the invasive species that they find in their 1-by-1 square of the, you know, playground. So there's much more motivation to get those basics done. So we'll always teach. Yeah, we're always going to teach.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Giving that opportunity to be stated once again.
Yeah.
Elder, did you?
Nope, I'm done.
Okay.
Okay, I just have one last slide to tie this all together. So as I was saying that, you know, the specifics of our professional development, cultural responsiveness, co-teaching, curriculum development, the 8 power practices, they all fit in that intersection of community, culture, instruction, and curriculum. This work is going to lead us, I'm going to make one click. Oh, that's my beautiful slide.
It'll work.
Towards this engaged, empowered education for everyone. So that's our goal. That's all.
Thanks, Liddy. Anything else for Liddy? Now, Moira can applaud. But we will state, Liddy, that for those of us that have been on the board for a little bit, you know, PD, professional development compared to what it was 10 years ago, to what you're doing now, to what the district is doing now, it's light years ahead of what used to go on. So it's very impressive. Great work by you and Lily, and now the others.
Now the others.
Now the
Yes,
others.
all of us. Thank you.
And keep rolling, and I'm going to roll right into policies. And Sean,
Absolutely. We in essence only have 2 policies on the agenda for today, but they have multiple parts to them. The first policy is about graduation requirements, and there are 3 different documents. The first is a general policy, then the graduation requirements for Ithaca High School and the Lehman Alternative Community School. We'll do all 3 individually because I imagine that one will garner much more conversation than the other 2. So to begin with, I move policy 4770, graduation requirements. This is just the 1-page policy up there on the board for a first reading this evening.
Second.
second by Pat.
And I'd be happy to answer any questions. I don't know with my policy committee members here, we didn't have too much conversation about this policy. It was basically boilerplate. We tried to reduce it to this, the essence of what we thought it needed to say, and take out a bunch of language, and this is what we were left with. Was that fair, Pat, and one?
It was short.
It was very short.
Participation in graduation is determined.
We'll get there.
We'll get there.
We'll get there.
Oh, okay.
That's going to be the sticking point between both 2 policies.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
And it won't change this one because each school has their own policies.
So any other questions right now? First reading, so go.
So just to answer Brad's point, there's the last line says participation in the graduation exercise is determined by the regulations, and so each school has currently has proposed a different regulation for participation in commencement exercises, which we'll discuss when we get to the respective schools.
Saw that, yeah. Well, they're different schools.
We'll have the conversation, the board decides.
So anything else on this?
ICSD.
Move seconded for that first reading, and we do vote as we go.
We do vote
Sean.
on first
All right.
School if they wanted to.
Move seconded. Anything else? Anything? All in favor? That's everyone on the first reading for 4770.
Great. The next policy is policy 4770-R, Ithaca High School. And this is the Ithaca High School regulations. The 2 things to talk about in this policy, first, just the actual requirements are taken directly from the New York State's posted website. They change with great regularity. So if I'm not mistaken, we've already had 3 changes in this academic calendar alone. And so we may add just another asterisk, but the idea is that we'll just continue to make reference to what those recommendations are, even while
What
we're
would you just say, what would you put in a line, or such requirements as?
It does say in big bold in the first line, these are the requirements as of March 2016, always refer to current posted NICED requirements.
So we're putting it in, but we're, okay.
And we can work in the language at the policy committee if folks make that recommendation. This is also listed in the student code of conduct for the high school, so they also list the requirements even while they may be outdated by the time they give them to students, if that makes sense. But we felt we should list something. There's small changes, usually tweaks. And then you see in the second sentence of the actual policy, Ithaca High School, after some conversation, deliberation amongst the policy committee and the high school administration, has indicated that participation in commencement exercises will be predicated on satisfactory completion of all graduation requirements. In other words, if you are not graduating in June, you do not participate in Ithaca High School graduation ceremony.
Where is that language?
That's in the very first page of 477-RI.
Right under the bowl.
Under the bowl, these requirements.
Anything I missed, Pat, or? And as I understand,
And I guess I would want to reinforce what Sean just said, is that this language about participation in commencement came from the leadership team at Ithaca High School. They communicated with us and said, this is what we support, which is currently the practice, as I understand.
And as I understand it from both Pat as well, and made an effective argument as this being a tool to get kids to cross over the finish line towards the end of the semester, end of the school year, right? They were saying that this was a good way for them to use to make sure students complete their high school requirements.
Is there any flexibility for circumstances beyond? It seems when we're thinking about that, and when you guys are saying what the high school officials said, that it's all about encouraging kids to get their you-know-what together so they can do the work. But however, there are circumstances that are beyond the child's control, where they've done everything and then some catastrophe strikes, right, which none of us can envision. Is there any flexibility in the policy for circumstances that are beyond the child's control?
There was so this came to us not just from the leadership, this came to us from the teachers. And this was a very, it's been a long debated topic there. And the phrase that came up was slippery slope. You open up a loophole and people start to wiggle through. And one of the things we've been talking about for the past couple of years has been, well, higher graduation rates at Ithaca High School, and Ithaca High School teachers very strongly credit having this carrot as motivation. And so they saw that creating exceptions would lead to loss of graduation rates. And that's why they have an August graduation.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think you don't graduate unless you graduate. I mean, you should complete the task. And I guess we're going to have that conversation again here on LICS in a minute, because you need to complete the task, and maybe that's why their graduation rate is abysmal.
84% is not abysmal. But with a 100% standard, it is low, right?
It's not 84%, though. And that's August, that's not June.
Yeah, that's August.
I guess to answer Eldridge's question, in the policy as written, there's nothing here for special circumstances. I would be curious to know if, since this has been the practice at Ithaca High School, and I'm not sure how long that's been, because when I was there, we were not, maybe it changed in my last couple of years, but I was there for many years where kids were participating in graduation who had not fulfilled
We've
the
been doing
requirements.
that August graduation with,
Right.
anywhere from 8 to 15, something like that, right?
Yeah.
A little less than 10, a little more than 10, it seems like.
Yeah, anyway, but I'd be curious to know, since this has been the practice at Ithaca High School, have there been cases of, pleading for special circumstances? And was it just, nope, the policy is the policy?
I mean, the thing that comes, I don't want to do that. The thing that comes to mind for me, because I worked with LICS students on a project about this, is all the, we've had a lot of kids who've had some very significant car accidents as graduation approaches, right? For some reason, these always seem to happen in the spring. And you know the circumstance I'm talking about. You don't know the family, so I don't even want to get into details, but there's a circumstance where a passenger in that car, through no fault of their own, is in the hospital for 4 months, right? Can't possibly do what's required of them to walk across that stage in June. So is that kid the type of student who's envisioned by the circumstance? That's really all I'm asking.
The answer as currently says is that does it matter who the policy envisions, that child will not participate. I've been a strong advocate against this policy for a number of reasons. I've been trying to communicate it in a long, detailed conversation with many of my colleagues. First, 2 of my 3 higher education degrees, I walked in the ceremony in May to help celebrate with my family while I graduated in August. And so I say if it was good enough for those institutions, it may be good enough for us as well. There was incentive there. Much more to Eldridge's point, I also shared a personal experience, and I realize that this doesn't happen for everyone, but my mother had me at the age of 18, had me in May, right? So that may have been through some fault of her own, without question, right? But then she was not able to participate in her graduation ceremony because she missed a month of school for having a child. So I'm thinking of those kinds of experiences as well, right? And then lastly, and I say this as a personal thing, having people in my family who have not graduated from high school, and having watched and struggled to get our daughter through high school, who almost was not allowed to participate in IHS's graduation ceremony, I would argue through no fault of her own with 2 involved dedicated parents, that I'm realizing, and I'm very much aware of the stigma that's also assigned, that high school graduation is one of the few rites of passage we have in this nation for almost all youth. Not all youth are going to college, not all youth are going to experience a college education, but the vast majority of youth, 85 to 90%, will experience some sort of high school education. And deprive people and their families from the opportunity to celebrate in that moment because they may be a credit off, just to me seems a little bit, I'm struggling to understand what lesson we're trying to teach. And I understand that it's a carrot on one hand to get people over the line, but the flip side for me is the stigma for those 4 or 5 families or those 4 or 5 children that aren't allowed to participate, and that's what I struggle with as well. So I know there's a balance of all kinds of issues at hand, but those are some of the things that I'd like to put out there.
Well, I really appreciate that point of view, and I want to be nice, and you want to be compassionate. There's something about the process and the ceremony that is about a resolution. It's like there was a goal, you achieved it, and you're commemorating that moment, and it's something, it's an incentive, and you take that away and you have no deadline, I worry. Without a deadline,
Again, you're saying the words that to me, as Sean just said, indicate so much class, so much history, so much race. It's just incentive. What about children who, through no fault of their own, run into circumstances that don't meet that criteria?
Chris first, go ahead.
I think we're not being totally honest either, because we kind of do flex this, and we do make it happen. And I agree with Moira. The way it's written, worded, it doesn't happen that way. But people are walking across they're still doing the work, and they are squeaking by. It is happening. We're just not writing it the way it's happening. Writing it the way it's happening. So I think we need to, one, take a step back and be honest and know what's really going on, and ask ourselves the question, do we want to really exclude people, or do we want to include people, and how do we make that happen?
Pat, Pat then Brad.
I'm going to make the point that this was not something that we as a committee were just throwing around pros and cons, that we had a very clear, very eloquent support of this policy as written by Ithaca High School teachers and administration, who felt that it has been integral in raising the graduation rates at Ithaca High School. And I really don't think it's productive of us to kind of swoop down and say, you've been working on this for the last 5 years, you feel it's really effective, but we want you to change the policy. And I will argue, I'll take the comparable stand for LACS, although I disagree with their policy.
That's helpful. This is my question, right? And I'm taking this one with IHS, right? I don't agree with it, but it's what they want, so I'm willing to go with it, right? Interesting. Brad?
And if we're going to move on to that, and I'm very torn on this. Partly my experience at Ithaca High School, when there were kids who were participating in graduation who had not completed their requirements, and some of them were my students. And my concern about them, they weren't kids who were in a car accident. They were kids who it just never seemed to register with them. I have to get my act together. I have to get this done. That it was just, and I felt like we were helping them to live in this kind of fantasy that they'd actually done something that they hadn't done. And I guess the problem with policy is I don't know how to have a policy that differentiates between that student and a student who has been in a car accident. I also would say that I also had an experience where a family member was not going to be able to participate in graduation, and I advocated that she be allowed, and that permission was granted. She chose not to. In retrospect, I feel like it was a mistake to put the experience of the graduation ahead of, the reality is she hadn't completed it. And so I feel, and if she didn't actually participate, and we all got over it. So I'm torn about this, but we're going to talk about LACS in a minute, but we've got a different policy, which is something that they have recommended. I'm willing to go along with their recommendation, because it is a different school. It's a very different situation. But we did not receive real information about their rationale. I would like, and if we're going to talk about ACS graduation rates, I would really want to hear from them. They know the kids that didn't make it. They have information about their perspective on why the kids hadn't completed, what happened over the summer, what didn't happen over the summer for some of them. I just feel like I need a lot more of their perspective about the details as we look at the bigger picture of graduation, not just the graduation ceremony.
Go ahead, Brad, then Pat.
Yeah, I support the high school's policy that you actually have completed it. I think it's a lesson, like any other lesson. I mean, they're going to need to complete tasks in their adult life, and they're not always going to be comped through if they don't complete the task. In fact, they might lose their job, or they might, have some other problems like that, and maybe they need to know you need to complete the task. So I'm not, and Eldred, I hear your concern about an individual case. We do a graduation in August, and they can always come the following year and get their diploma. I know it's not the same. I know it's not the same, and you're grinning at me. But what I'll tell you is, if we start letting them go through without it, Grandma's there, Auntie's there, all the other relatives are there, and as far as they're concerned, they graduated. And then they can stop. They don't have to do anything beyond that in the minds of some of them. And we've let them get away without that. And I think we need to force them to complete the task.
And just to speak to how to phrase the language, the message from the administration was they don't want language that encourages loopholes.
Right.
And I believe in giving our principal the tools that he feels he needs to complete the task that we've been nagging him to do, which is get the graduation rate to 100%.
Sean.
This is one of those days where I love being on the board. I mean this seriously, because the different perspectives are helpful to engage this. So just a quick thought to folks. I'm wondering how many of us here have family members who are not college or high school graduates. To think that the incentive to not get a degree when you can't do anything in this world and get a job without a high school diploma is not knowing folks who have not graduated from high school. Everyone I know who has not graduated from high school laments that fact on a repeated basis. And I understand the idea of saying that this may get them over the edge. No. The fact of getting a high school diploma gets them over the edge because they know they can't get a job, they can't go on to college, they can't do a host of things. And so I want to repeat what Eldred said, just respectfully. It is dripping of something. Like we have vastly different perspectives, maybe because we probably know different folks who have done different experiences. We may know the same folks. But I know far too many folks who have not graduated from high school and the stigma that that's created for them, and this policy would not help them.
How does this not get them the diploma?
You're making the assumption that we're talking about Moira's folks. I work in a world full of racism, right, where my child was actually failing PE class and almost didn't graduate, and the teacher didn't call me. I learned that a week before she was about to graduate. Right? So that's my reality, where those experiences happen to me on a daily basis. So I'm trying to find a policy where you can't do that to my child the last week of class. And that happens, and I know experiences like that, and I'm sure that's kind of what you're talking about, E. Like, I know those many experiences from the families that I work with repeatedly, that's my concern. That this policy deprives those families from the opportunity to participate, and it may not be the child's fault.
But E asked the question about people for whom it wasn't their fault.
Right.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But somebody who didn't complete phys ed, I think it might be their fault.
We can happily sit down and I want to show you the emails and you can tell me whose fault it was.
Notification may be an issue, but...
I hear you. Right, it's a bad experience to use our own experiences, but I happily talk about that.
And I'll say I do know people who didn't graduate from high school, and I have cousins in Massachusetts who didn't graduate from high school, and they may have regretted it, but they didn't regret it at 18 enough to go in the summer and finish off. 10, 20, 30 years down the line, they regret it. But a lot of 18-year-olds aren't having that moment of self-reflection. And boy, I had better get this done right away because I am going to need this. And that's my view.
Now, for just one more perspective, this policy, as it's written down, is also holding staff, and I'm going to include myself in the staff. The conversations are different now. This time, we're scrambling. This policy is holding us accountable. I think the conversation so far has been about holding kids accountable. We know we need to get young people done by that time to graduate, and we're working our butts off every year to do so. And for the particular situation like you're describing, we know about those. I can't think of one instance in almost 6 years now where a young person hasn't walked because of a mitigating circumstance. And I know of something that's happened, and we worked even harder to make sure they did what they needed to do to walk. So there may be one, I just don't know of one, but I do know of the dozens at some points of the spring that we think aren't going to graduate, and how hard we work to make sure that doesn't happen.
And I would just call a quick timeout. I don't believe this has been moved and seconded yet for first reading. And this is a first.
There was.
I didn't.
Do we have to do each one separate? We do.
Yeah.
Okay.
I move policy 4770-R IHS for a first reading.
Second.
The one that combined the two.
I get it this way.
Not the dash.
Moira got that. Well, part of that point is this is the first reading, not the second, and we'll have another opportunity to talk about it. But doesn't mean we can't continue to discuss. Which, Sean, you want to go ahead?
No, I like the conversation.
Right.
I guess I just want to add one thing, is that we're talking about two things that we're making a link between them, but they are different. Actually getting the diploma in the sense of having completed the requirements and participating in the graduation ceremony. Now, what we're saying is that we believe, and people at the high school seem to believe, that making participation in the graduation ceremony is a motivator incentive, making that contingent on completion to get the completion. But they are still two different things. And so
Right,
I think we need to be careful when we're almost talking about participating in the ceremony means you've graduated from high school, when,
as a social construct.
yeah.
But I will point to Dr. Brown's comments, holding staff accountable, a direct reflection of what Sean went through in a circumstance. No longer can you wait until the last few weeks of school to realize that, my absentees from phys ed, and we heard that a lot. And I know kids that they were in jeopardy of not passing because they had to take phys ed in summer school to try to make it up because they really didn't want to go, didn't go for a few years, and said, hey, you can't graduate. Really because of phys ed? Well, yes, because of phys ed. That is a requirement. And so it was on these young people that they blew it off. I'm not going to go, because I don't want to change. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to go. But no, it's one of the requirements. So, but phys ed is just one piece. But it is the other pieces, Dr. Brown, that ensuring that kids have what they need well before their spring semester senior year to graduate. And I think that's really that's on us, and that's on the district, that's on the community to make sure that they're ready to do that. And there is a few that are going to have some issues, but this is the first reading. Go ahead, Sean.
I was going to say that I would rather see us work on how better to communicate and advising, so that a year in advance they say, well, this is where you're at, and if you don't do X, Y, Z, you're not going to be able to graduate on time. So I'd rather see us solve it in that way than say, go ahead and because I think the ceremony, it's too easy for a student, once having gone through the ceremony, to feel as if they've already graduated, and then it's harder to get the job, the work done.
And that's why we had graduation coaches at them a few years ago.
Right.
Unfortunately, probably don't have as many as we would like to because of budgetary reasons. But that was a key addition was
Could the guidance office also do that?
Of course, but we added graduation coaches, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And Sean, go ahead.
Just not to belabor the point, but Doc, and hearing you talk about that, what troubles me about what the senator said that we have not stopped students from participating, despite what I'm advocating, is that if the policy says so, then we should be following the policy. So there's a problem between policy and praxis. And so while I don't like the policy and I want that flexibility, then if we're going to write a policy that does not have flexibility, then that's what we should be following. I would think that many of us agree, whether we like the policy or not, right, that's what we should try to do. Because I don't know what the way around that is, but it's just have me thinking, like, then why have a policy if we're going to have loopholes anyway? Which is probably what I hear right now.
Is that what you were saying?
No, I didn't
That's
say
what
that we
Chris-
didn't complete.
But that was Chris was saying,
Chris said
yeah.
that. We have all known of people who participated in Ithaca High School graduation who have had to take some additional time to complete their stuff. Right, that's just the reality.
That's my reality, that's my point.
But with that being said, I'm done
I'm not aware of it.
beating up this one. It'll be I'm sure we're gonna go around two when we get right to
Yeah.
LACS.
We like to beat up policies. This is, Sean, as you say, this is where we earn our keep. And first reading has been moved, seconded, and we're going to come back to it. All in favor of the first reading, not of anything else beyond being able to read it again? Okay. That's right.
Make it clear.
Yeah,
You
just.
get to continue
Yeah,
to work
so
at it.
I'll move policy 4770-R LACS for a first reading.
Second.
Fantastic. And this
Go ahead.
policy is taken from the LACS foot book, not the handbook, the foot book. It includes their graduation requirements, and along with the committee members, there was also an attachment which included the state waivers to verify that this is what LACS can do for the graduation requirements. The real debate for us, I may imagine, may be the second sentence, which says that LACS, which is probably redundant since the LACS policy, but anyway.
Right.
At LACS, students may participate in commencement exercises if they've completed all graduation requirements or will complete them by August 31st. And we purposely left that language. It was vague for us in the committee as well. We had all other kinds of conversations. And I thought we changed something about a contract or something similar to that.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't see it here, but we can have that conversation. I think we should say something like a contract for completion by May 31st. So it wouldn't just be you have to complete it, but you'd have to take an additional step to outline a plan for completion. But the end result being LACS has made the recommendation that students can walk in June or participate in June commencement if they are within completion by August. And we have not confirmed what that means, right? We don't know, we have not
Wouldn't
confirmed.
it be a consequence if they didn't do the contract? Like, you write a contract and like, what kind of, there's no consequence.
Well, they don't get it.
They don't get it.
They don't get it.
Okay, that's the consequence.
It's pretty severe.
Right. But we can't
June or so.
we can't
There's no difference.
erase them from the video of graduation.
Oh, hi, Elder. What's up? What's up, man?
I could say so much, but let me just say this. How does this not send a message that we care less about the graduation rates at LACS than we do at the high school?
That's what it says.
I have an answer.
And I have a different one.
I want to hear from Pat. He talked there. He might have a
Pat buzzed in.
fatal conflict.
Pat buzzed in first on the lightning round, so go ahead. And then Sean.
Mind if I can enter a response?
Was,
No, go ahead, Pat.
I
You're
speak
good.
to Sean, see if you'd rather.
Please.
So what has me concerned about this is that the graduation rate at LACS is considerably lower, both for June and for August. And that even an August graduation rate is only 80%. And that's without the tests and with all the waivers. And it was 60-something% in June, and that's a shockingly low graduation rate. And we did in committee have some discussion about, I guess I hadn't realized what the graduation rate at LACS was because we're always hearing about the IHS graduation rate, but when the published graduation rate goes into the state figures, it's down into the 80s because of factoring in LACS. That being said, I did not think, as a member of the policy committee, that a diktat from on high was going to positively move LACS in any kind of direction. And so I personally was and I actually, we don't have the argument from LACS as to why this is a great policy the way we had the very cohesive and reasoned and argument from Ithaca High School backed up with data about the good job it's done. But I don't think that changing a line in this policy is going to be effective with LACS. That being said, I think the district administration needs to work with LACS to look into why, with all of these waivers and all of the more creative teaching and the more empowerment of students, it's not working for graduate students, because that deeply concerns me.
So I agree with 98.3% what Pat just said.
I did not expect this.
I think that there's a moment where this, I want to go back to something that Maura said. I want to try to do a slight separation between the two of these, even though they're connected in some regards. And that, for me, there's a serious conversation that's needed about LACS and graduation rates. As a student-led school and democratically run school, I'd like to put that charge to LACS. That you have got to, as a community, we've got to do some work on graduation rates. And so what does that mean like if the school then and I know that makes it a priority, but what if that became the focal point for next school year? What if we couldn't say that 17 graduating class 100% and let's put the challenge out and see what happens, right? I mean, that'd be one idea to think about it. I'm also aware that a good number of students that I got to work with at LACS came to LACS precisely because they were not being successful at Ithaca High School. And so this idea about a democratic education has multiple doors and multiple avenues. We're blessed to have an alternative school, a progressive alternative school in this community. We all know that, right? The educational options in this community are amazing. But there's also a reason why we had a need and a call for these alternative forms of education as well. So I don't see them as having to be the same. I see them as having different ways of going about it, and we have to do some work, I think, as Pat's saying, to address the graduation rate. This may not do it, but having a conversation around LACS and forcing them to have this conversation for me may, and that to make that a priority in some regards. So that's partly what I'm thinking is that LACS is different on purpose, but I hear Pat's concern. We all should be concerned. We want 100% graduation rate, and how do we make that happen? And I'd be willing to say to LACS, this is my charge. Or next year we're probably coming back and saying, yeah, you probably can't participate in August. So I'm willing to go down that path in a year or two, but I'm not willing to do that for me at this point in time, especially given what we just said for Ithaca High School.
Maura, go first.
I just want to say I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah,
Thank you, Maura. Go ahead.
Well, I think we're going to say the same thing. I'm just going to say it differently because this just opens up a lot of different layers. And while this is a policy, this screams that we have to do something. Okay? So, I struggle with the fact that it says can walk and complete by August 31st, but how do we get them there? So I want to ratchet up the urgency. And I want to ratchet it up now.
I hear you. What is our argument to the fact that almost every institution of higher education I know lets people walk?
No.
Now, I know, I'm asking the question.
I'm just asking for a mechanism.
I understand that. I'm asking the group a different question. If every institution of higher education lets folks walk, what is our argument there? That they're not worried about graduation?
We don't control who walks.
They do control who walks. You have a certain.
You can show up at the Cornell campus with a.
But I got myself in the program, and I didn't, right? So I officially got recognized in the program, as I'm sure other folks did, right?
$50,000 is different.
Okay. There's an argument for that. That's helpful.
No, I would agree with that. If you pay your bursar bill, you can get your diploma. If you owe money, you don't get your diploma.
That's an argument that works for me.
Plus, in schools, high school is really different than what else.
They are different than college.
In terms of that policy.
That's the more reason why we should be more flexible.
I just want to say Cornell also has a January graduation for people who don't make it in May, and it's
for a variety of reasons.
Or for people who are ratcheting it up a semester, and it's getting to be a fairly sizable ceremony with several hundred students. So.
Cornell's January graduation for people who can't complete by August. Then they go to the January graduation. They conclude by August. They walk in the May ceremony. If it's good enough for an Ivy League school, I'm wondering why it's not good enough for us.
Well, I'll answer that one because taxpayers are paying for this.
I hear you.
And I think they have some expectations of completion on our part. And personally, I'm disappointed by the graduation rate at LACS. I'm disappointed by their lack of angst over it. Somewhat unconcerned about it. I guess I'd look at this a different way and say, let's not have a June graduation, have an August graduation only at LACS. I'll flip-flop it. I'll flip-flop it. Oh, that is. 2 more months, they're going to get there.
I think like to see an analysis of the problem.
Yeah.
Like, is it because there isn't that requirement, or is there something about the requirements? Is there some requirement that consistently is difficult to achieve? Where does it fall down?
So I recommend, as a way we move forward, maybe not in the curriculum committee, but maybe we have that conversation with Diane to come in, or LICS community to have a conversation with us about graduation rates. It probably won't be anytime, maybe this academic year, right, with the year ending, but sometime soon, and I don't know who would be responsible for making that happen, but I think everyone on the board seems to be interested in that conversation.
And I would remind the board too, the numbers we're talking about at LICS, it's almost an identifiable conversation we're having.
Yeah.
We're talking 2-3 students at most that got us to that rate.
Right.
So we just.
Right, graduating class of 36 or 38 tells you.
Small school solution within the district, so.
So this has been moved.
Seconded by
I'm sure we'll have more debate for.
There is, we can do this when we work on it again. There's some language that I thought we had changed that looks like it didn't get changed. Just a little, like under critical thinkers and problem solvers facing bias, contracted typically in the 11th or 12th grade. We did change it, but it's not changed. I can't remember what we changed it to. Yeah, you have it, okay. Anyway, so Thursday we can
It is somewhat.
Clean up all the language.
clean up the language, yeah.
It's 47 in their 12th grade.
In 12th grade, currently. That's probably one of the bigger classes we have.
Yeah, they got 45, 44. 10th grade is small.
But I mean, in the past couple of years.
Oh, I didn't know.
Well, we didn't vote yet because everybody's still talking, so I only weigh in to say I graduated in January from Cornell, but I did not walk. It was my decision to take a semester off because of sports injuries, which is an industry unto itself. So, but I didn't walk because I hadn't completed the work, and January graduations were really not a big deal. I went to Day Hall to try to get my diploma, and they said I owed $25. No, I mean I had to go pay them some money because
There's a parking ticket or a library fine.
I know. I didn't have a car. I mean,
parking.
Library fine.
But yeah, I was uncomfortable walking with everybody else, and so since then, Brad, in some circumstances I'm 78, and other stuff I'm 79.
Right.
And
No, but you're always.
I'm a man without a
It's the class you start with.
right.
Know.
So you
My husband, who
matriculate with-
started with the class of '73, finally got his Cornell diploma in '82.
No, exactly. So I do 78 stuff, but
So you matriculate with.
but a lot of people don't quite remember when you graduated. But the important thing is to graduate. It's not And my parents did not see me walk to graduations. One person in the masses, right? But that was the price we paid because I screwed up my shoulder several times and all that. But so things happen, Elder. There's life happens, injuries or whatever, but you deal with it and you keep moving toward graduation. So we'll vote on the first reading for LACS, and all in favor. That's everyone. So that's my life story anyway.
Again, I keep saying this, but I really appreciate our conversations. They're really helpful for me. I move policy 4531, international field trips for first reading.
Second?
Second by Pat, who jumped in. Right.
So this policy is extensive in that it's got a policy, a procedure, and then 4 forms, which we're probably going to cut down to 3 forms. I'll explain that in a minute. But we'll just begin with the first policy, and there it is, just a couple paragraphs. We also made a language change or 2 in here, which I don't see, which will, for example, we took one international and made it global at one point in time.
Okay.
But this is the policy as it is.
We've got two, I've got 2 copies of the procedure.
I do too.
Oh, that might have been my mistake. But I've got it up here.
Sean, you got it.
Yeah, I have it right. And I'm happy to read it if folks don't have a copy of it, or it's right here on the screen as well. Yep. And the only change that we made from this is first paragraph, 3rd sentence, international experiences foster international understanding. I think we said international experiences foster global understanding. We didn't like international redundancy.
I think I had that one question, I don't know if this is the right spot for it, but in the third paragraph, it talks about the board has a right to withdraw approval if it's, you know. So, I don't know where it goes in this policy or sequence, but with the current kind of instability, there's like there's a travel alert for all of Europe.
Yep.
So I just wonder about how one ever would decide
Yep.
and under what conditions.
So, right, Ann's question was in particular the difference between both travel alerts and travel warnings in that regard, right? And currently Europe is in a travel alert. My response back to Ann was my experience with Ithaca College and leading international experiences that Ithaca College's risk management has allowed international travel to countries that are under travel alerts. And oftentimes because it's regional travel alerts, like you can't go to this province, or you can't go to that city, we can put some language in here that talks about that. Under no circumstances would I imagine would our board ever allow us to travel somewhere under a travel warning. I would just assume that we'd probably say that's not a good idea, right? So, but the idea of a travel alert, I think we can use best judgment, and there are situations where, for example, maybe we can go to parts of Europe even though they're under an alert, right? So, if we want some language in that, we can work on that on Thursday to try to clarify that. I don't know if you saw what I sent back, but I'm happy to do that.
And also who? Like, is it the superintendent decision, the principal's decision, the board decision?
Any quick thoughts while we're here?
I thought it said a
This
board.
is the board.
Well, I think the board is charged with the responsibility of approving also. I think that situation would have to come back to us. The question becomes, if we're not paying attention, how are we going to make the notice between the 60 days? And so we can have that conversation. So we can put it here. We'll also put it into one of the
The
forms.
field trip, the procedures has the field trip advisor, director, checking for warnings, communicating findings before the application and two other times?
A couple days prior to, right?
Right.
Yeah. All right, so we have some, we can add it right to that language. Great. So we'll try to find, if there's a place for it within this policy, we'll put it there. Otherwise, it will be in the procedures.
So did we
Anything else?
move this?
We did move it.
Okay.
Move second.
And it's seconded. Okay.
Yep. So we're all good?
Yep.
Yeah, Pat seconded that one. So we're good? All in favor? All in favor minus Eldred who stepped away.
I move policy 4531-P. This is the International Field Trips Procedures. And this is, I want to really thank Libby and other folks for spending a good deal of time on this. We tried to finally get our hands around our international field trips and talk about our procedures. Say again?
Somebody second?
Second.
Thank you. Nope.
Thanks.
And so this tries to outline the entire process from start to finish. And if you see the blue paragraph, that has not been fully vetted by the committee. We did it via email, but that was a paragraph that the BS&K lawyers asked us about students with special needs and disabilities, that we didn't seem to make any provisions for that, and we said, please send us some language, and we consider it. The language seemed to be decent for us to even think about and putting out in the policy, so that's why that language is there.
Okay, that's in the second one,
That's
but
in the
not
second,
the
not the
first.
first one, correct. And so, right, that recently just got deleted.
there.
I gotta add.
Yeah, I saw that.
Blueprint.
We did have some conversation about chaperones. We had an extensive dialogue about there is no legal requirement, as we understand it, only recommendations, as we know that happens from the state. We said, as a general procedure, that we will go with a 10-to-1 student ratio on average with no less than 2 chaperones for any international travel experience. In case of any kind of emergencies, we thought we needed to have more than 1 chaperone present. We also said, for a number of reasons, and we're also very much aware of our LGBTQI students and transgender students, but when trips involve both male and female and transgender students, that they'll have chaperones of differing genders, is what we decided on as well. So beyond that, Pat and Moira, am I missing anything else that we talked about?
We actually didn't get into anything other than a binary male and female students and
That's
male and
correct.
female
That's
chaperones
correct.
at this point.
Thank you, Pat,
We
for
talked
not.
about it.
Hopelessly mired in the 20th century on this one point.
We'll get to all that other discussion
At some
later.
point.
It's coming our way soon.
Yeah, I think this is all, it's nothing. Yeah.
There it is.
We did have some conversation about medical emergencies and we consulted with the lawyers, and so this is what we came up with.
Good, great. Anything else? This isn't probably as interesting as graduation rates, but,
Well, you'd be
but
surprised.
it's critical to,
When can you okay medical treatment, when can you not okay medical treatment?
oh, I know, I mean, it's, yeah, and,
Who's got a stat phone? We have a stat phone.
No, we took that part out.
Yep, we did.
Oh, and it was,
well, could be
It was
useful.
housing satellite phones.
Yeah, yeah, right.
yeah.
I'm good.
Anything else on this, Moira?
Well, I was just going to say, one other thing that we discovered is that if indeed a student has to be sent home for either medical or behavior issues, a chaperone must accompany the student. And so, and that could have an impact on the number of students and, I mean, the number of chaperones and.
How does that, when I read that, I thought, we often ask whether or not the groups have done some due diligence so that children whose parents would not be able to foot these bills can go. What happens if a child without the means turns out to be the one who acts a fool, and we're trying to pass that cost on to people who just simply won't bear it?
I haven't a clue.
See you in court.
Yeah.
Cross that bridge.
They call that judgment proof. It doesn't work.
There you go.
Yeah.
See you somewhere.
Okay, very good. All in favor? That's everyone, and Eldred is back.
So the next thing are 4 forms, one which hits out with something that Eldred was talking about, and I did not have a full conversation with my committee members, but I think hopefully having read these today in a little more detail and all together, it'll make some sense what I'm trying to recommend and advocate. Well, we've been working on all these, not we, Lydia and other folks have been working on these forms for quite some time. So the first form is 4531-F1, and this is the application for sponsoring an international field trip. And this is what the faculty or staff member will be completing as part of the application that comes to the board. And in there, Eldred, if you notice on page 2, there is a section that says financial arrangements, and it says please indicate steps taken to ensure the trip is affordable to a diversity of students. Right. So what we thought of doing is, rather than asking that question every time someone comes here, to now make that part of the application. Right, that you have to be thinking about this in advance. And so that was Lydia's great suggestion. I think we put that on there, and so there that is. So there's the form. I'll try to walk through these real quick. The second thing we did is an international field trip waiver, which that is 4531-F2. I'm actually going to recommend that we do not pass this, and I'll explain it hopefully in a minute, and my colleagues hopefully will we had a whole conversation about whether or not these waivers even have any legality. We can talk to folks. Our lawyers were making the argument that they really don't do anything for us, but we didn't want to just get rid of the language because we felt the language is important because it had some information. If you notice, there are 3 places, 3 different paragraphs on this waiver. One is for parents and one is for the students. The next 2 forms we have is a parent permission slip and a student agreement contract. My suggestion would be to take these 2 things and put them into the document. The parent piece goes into the parent permission slip. This code of conduct part goes to the student contract, and so we don't have multiple forms going on. We just have 2 additional forms, if that makes sense. And so if the board agrees, we'll just take these 2 things from the waiver and put them into the permission slip, which is number 4, and the student contract, which is number 3, if that works for everybody involved.
Yeah.
And, I'm grabbing yours, I apologize. Almost spilled my papers here. So I'm going to hold off on number 2 for a second. Number 3, if we have it, is the International Student Conduct Contract. So this went through, and this is pretty much similar to what we had before, just outlines what the students agreeing to do. And then number 4 is the International Permission Slip. And here's where partly of Ann's question that we can include some information about travel alerts as well. And the international permission slip just include parents on the information as well. So here's what I would recommend. I don't know what we can vote on all these as a first reading tonight. We can not take any action on these, bring them back up at the next meeting, put them on for a second reading, and it would need a supermajority board vote to pass, and we can keep them all together. how to know how the board would like to proceed. I don't know if you want to vote on something you haven't seen the full language of. That's why I want to make sure that you feel comfortable.
I would offer a suggestion since it sounds like the travel waiver is going to go away, so I'd really no reason to vote on a form that's going to go away.
Yep.
We can vote on the other two. Obviously, we have edits that we're going to make to those documents.
Yep.
But at least we can move them for a first reading, know that we're going to add edits.
Great.
And then the second time
Great.
is...
Yeah.
So then I'm going to move them all at once if that works because they're all together, right? I'm going to move policy 4531-F1, the application for sponsoring international field trip, and currently numbered 4531-F3, which is this international student conduct contract, and 4531-F4, the international permission slip, all for a first reading.
Second.
Second by Moore. And you discussed the edits already that you're looking to add. You're going to do that at the next next opportunity to do so.
Yep.
Anything else? Other comments? All in favor? That's everybody. Thanks, Policy Committee.
Thank you all for your patience and colleagues for your time and energy and expertise.
Good work. Great, always good discussion.
We're gonna have more fun now that Matt is trying to put more work at us.
Other business, Dr. Brown, anything? Other dates, I did notice is there indeed a Finance Committee meeting on the 11th, meeting tomorrow? That's on,
Oh, you said there's a night off?
Finance.
Finance on 23rd.
It's not tomorrow, it's on my calendar, it's tomorrow.
well, it's,
Finance?
Yes, finance.
well, was also, I saw it on one agenda, it was still there.
It was an error.
Oh, no, it's no problem.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify.
Finance tomorrow. Brad clearly didn't think he had finance.
You all
But
just
then
see my marriage.
Right, and then
But
I
we
think
do
I can
have
see it on the
policy.
23rd as well.
That's a good thing.
We do
I
have
know,
policy.
every night this week I saw
Thursday.
Monday,
We'll
Tuesday,
be talking about
Wednesday.
attendance versus enrollment versus how do we use them in what formula and where do they go and what comes from beds and what comes from Tom's data and so we'll have
Next
Brady
finance.
Reagan, Brady Reagan is coming down from Albany, we'll have Lynn.
We're gonna be experts.
Oh.
Yeah, we'll have OCM, BOCE's data folks, so it should be a really good conversation to sort of demystify.
Okay.
And tomorrow, Ann, Eldred, and myself, we're going off to a tutelage on state aid at the New York State School Boards Association. We asked them to give us a personal lesson. So we hope
Fantastic.
to come away with a little better understanding of how the sausage is.
Somewhere here. They're coming here?
No, we're going there.
Central New York? Or you
No,
going to
no,
Albany?
Albany, yeah.
You're going to
Going to the
real
mountain.
this way.
Going to the mountain.
Yeah.
I'm going to the
Nice.
mountains.
So we'll be doing that. Let's remember, vote
Well, of course.
Tuesday, please.
It's really good if board members participate and actually vote, in public. Well, I mean,
Yeah, and you can't
do
come
that.
work on the Lego if you haven't voted.
Absolutely,
And the
absolutely.
curriculum committee is the 18th, right?
Got evidence of it.
Yep. 9 o'clock. A week from Wednesday.
9
o'clock. Yeah.
Sean, go ahead.
And I know that as school board members, and I'll be doing this as well, that we're not allowed to advocate a position on the vote one way or the other, but I would ask people to really pay attention to Proposition 3. They're all propositions without question, but to really read, we've been doing a great deal of work with the Enfield Community Center, and so I want people to be really informed about what that is and to take that seriously. And so for board members and fellow folks to keep letting folks know, I know other people have expressed a concern that people may not even read that proposition by the time they get down there, but it's a real serious one, so I want to just keep making sure it's on people's consciousness.
Thanks, Sean.
And it doesn't cost.
I'd like to wish my husband a very happy 60th birthday. It was really nice, honey, spending 45 minutes with you before I came to the board meeting. I hope to be home soon. And I just want to note for my fellow board members that he is such a supportive spouse that he said he would only watch the Yankees game tonight if this was not being broadcast.
Well, I, on the other hand, am really hoping my husband was not watching and hearing me talk about how long it took him to get out the grade. What was I thinking? Oops.
Moira is learning the tricks of the trade. You know? Don't talk about your spouse. We can say anything we want about ourselves when we do that, but spouses don't.
Moira, we got a couple extra bedrooms here.
Anything else for the good of the group? Are we good? Thanks, everyone. On Tuesday, vote early and often. Thanks, everybody.